There, LibertyCon. Thank you guys for joining me on this Saturday evening or afternoon, or maybe not even Saturday for some of you. Whatever. It's great to not see you. I really am glad that you took some time to spend with me. I'm John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books. We are an independent press based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm going to take a little time this afternoon. See, I get all confused. Late summer screws me up, or summer screws me up because it's daylight. And, I've got a window right here, and there's a window in the back, so it's all bright. So it's afternoon, but it's 7 o'clock because North Carolina. So, look, it's just going to be afternoon. That's what it is. In my world, it's afternoon. So I'm going to spend some time this afternoon talking about publishing and how to pitch to a publisher. For people who are beginning writers, who are new in their careers or aspiring to be published, learning how to pitch a book is one of the scariest things out there. Now, I came into writing fiction late in life. This is my second career. I had a 20-year career in theatrical construction before I started working on this stuff. So it was easier for me to go up to strangers and pitch my work because I'd spent almost 2 decades convincing strangers to buy things from me. So no big deal, right? Just somebody else who is probably going to tell me no. And that's kind of the trick to getting over your fear of pitching. You're going to get a lot of rejections. It's just like dating or middle school. A lot of people are going to tell you no. So if you think about all the people that have told you no in your life, from your parents when you asked for that extra slice of cake at dessert, to that hot person in high school who you really wanted to go out with and had no interest in you, you can realize that you've been rejected before. Somehow it didn't kill you. It probably won't kill you now either. So don't get wrapped up in things like, oh, this is my dream publisher. Because then if that dream doesn't come true, you may be thoroughly disappointed and trunk that book and not get the opportunity to share a fantastic book with the world just because Falstaff or Bain or Tor or Del Rey didn't buy that book. Well, maybe somebody else buys it, and maybe your dream publisher buys the next one. So first, get over rejection. It ain't a big deal. Nobody's ever died from being told no. And I'm going to lay better than even odds that you won't be the first. But how do you do it? How do you pitch a book? First, let's break down a couple of myths. There is the writer, artist, and then there is the writer business person. And we have this strange disconnect in the mythology of this business that those people aren't the same human. They are. You are a business. You are producing a saleable product. You need to have a workman-like approach to what you're trying to sell, what you're trying to do. this idea that artists aren't supposed to care about business, aren't supposed to care about money. It's a load of crap, y'all. So maybe don't do that. Maybe just accept that you're going to have some pieces of business that you're going to have to deal with. I take a very workmanlike approach to my writing and to the sale of my writing. My words are not precious to me. They're not the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa probably wasn't the Mona Lisa to him either. I can guarantee you that most of Shakespeare's work was stuff he was doing for a check. You do the best work you possibly can, but you understand that you're creating a product for sale. And it's not going to be to everyone's liking, and that isn't a condemnation of you as a human being. Start by divorcing yourself from the idea that your work is some fundamental connection to you or some fundamental statement on your worth as a person. Because it's not. It's a book that you wrote. You did your best job at it. And now somebody else gets to decide if they like it or not. And if they don't like it, it doesn't mean they don't like you. It doesn't mean you're not a good person. It just means they didn't like your book. Oh, well. So once you've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about things to have ready and ways to sell your book. A lot of the things we're going to talk about today are a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today, because if you guys are talking, I can't hear you. A lot of the things I'm going to talk about are when you're pitching in person, because I do a lot of live pitch sessions at cons. So these tips work best there, but they're also very effective, and they're things that you need to do when you're querying via query letter, when you're participating in Twitter pitch contests, or any of those things. The very first thing you absolutely positively have to have ready before you can pitch your book is the book. Sounds simple, right? Sounds dumb, right? Yeah, moron, of course I got to have the book ready. At least one out of every single live pitch session I've ever done, someone stands up and says, so I'm working on, and I tend to tell people, okay, sit down, thank you. I'm not even polite at that point. And that's because you have to have a book. You gotta have something to pitch. Most people who talk about writing a book don't ever write a book. If you've typed the words "the end" on a book, on a novella, you are already ahead of 80% of people who say, I want to write a book someday. Because 4 out of 5 of those will not ever finish a book. So there you go. 80% of potential authors write out. But yeah, you have to actually have finished the book. Other things that you need multiple different types of synopsis or pitch. You need a one-page synopsis. Of course, pages are this size, right? David Coe, who also writes as DB Jackson, did a fantastic breakdown one time about how to go through your book and create your short synopsis, which is 2 to 3 pages. Then how to break that down into your 1-page synopsis, how to break all of that down into a 1 paragraph, and then how to boil that down into a 1 sentence, because you need all these things. These are all pieces of the process. Let's say, for example, that we're talking in the hotel lobby bar. I'm not going to say that I do a lot of work in the hotel lobby bar, but I do a lot of work in the hotel lobby bar. My glasses keep going white because I have multiple tabs open and I'm bouncing back and forth between Discord and notes and my stream, because I am way too vain to have a camera running of me and not stare at it every single moment that it's running. Also, I'm a cat and I see movement and I have to what? I fully expect my actual cat to make an appearance at some point in this video too. So you need a 1-page synopsis, because if we're into the bar chit-chatting and I say, okay, well, send me a synopsis, I don't mean in 6 months. I don't mean in 6 weeks. I also don't mean in 6 hours. I mean within the week after the convention or meeting or whatever, wherever we've run into each other, within the next week, I expect an email from you with a 1-page synopsis of your book. That should include the general plot. No, it's not a friggin' secret. Don't worry about spoiling the ending to a publisher. I've seen all of the endings at this point. It's all about how you get there. I get it. Luke's really her brother. So, yes, you should include the ending or the hook or any big reveal in a synopsis that you're sending to a publisher or an agent, because we want to know. Now, if you're doing a live pitch session at the con and it's your turn and you stand up and, hi, I'm John Hartness and this is my book and blah. That's your 1-paragraph synopsis. And I'll go through a little bit more in depth on the structure of that 1-paragraph pitch a little later, but be succinct. Yeah, I know. The guy who is literally staring into a camera for 45 minutes listening to himself talk is going to tell you to be succinct. But I'm the guy with the camera, so that's what I get to do. Then you need a 1-sentence blurb. This is what's frequently called your elevator pitch. It's also, once the book exists in a physical form, it's your convention table pitch. For example, The Black Knight Chronicles is a light urban fantasy where a couple of comic book nerds get turned into vampires and decide to play Batman by becoming private investigators. That is my convention table pitch for that series. I've used it for a decade now. Quincy Harker, Demon Hunter, is an award-winning dark urban fantasy series that's a lot like if Supernatural were on HBO and only Dean knows Sam. So a lot more F-bombs and a lot less crying. And that's the pitch that I have given hundreds, if not thousands of times about that book and that series. I've got it boiled down, and you need to have it boiled down that cold. It's just like learning lines for a play. So practice it, work on it, sit in front of the mirror and study it. Do it for your friends. Do it for your writer friends. Your mundane friends probably don't care, and probably are going to buy your first book anyways, just because it's your first book. And if you buy it, they think you'll shut up about it. You won't, but whatever, their mistake. But work on your pitch and have it polished. If you're standing on the other side of my table at a convention and you've been shopping and you're like, hey, I've got a book I'm looking at shopping around. And I say, okay, well, tell me about it. I want that. I want one sentence. I am a busy human being with ADHD and I can only pay attention for so long. So you got to hook me. And if your first sentence is interesting, I will probably say, okay, send me your first 3 chapters. There, you've done it. You've pitched a book. You've gotten a request. Your one sentence blurb is also what you can use in Twitter pitch contests like PitMad. These are very useful for some people. I've never participated because I've not had anything that I'm shopping for publication in quite a while. I own the company, so I don't have to. Mountain Dew looks terrible on camera, doesn't it? It looks like I'm drinking watered down antifreeze. I kind of am drinking watered down antifreeze. Anyway. So we have a question, and it segues pretty much perfectly into one of the things into the next thing on my list, which is research. If you're going to pitch to a publisher, you need to research that publisher. You need to know what we put out there. The question is, I presume, knowing what a publisher publishes is vital to pitching your book successfully. Are there resources out there who kind of group publishers / imprints it by genre to help someone know if it's a waste of time to pick book X to publisher Y? Yes. Not only yes, but yes, and thank you for thinking to ask the question. The reason I get so emphatic is because not everyone who submits their work for publication does this work ahead of time, and that's why I get things submitted to Falstaff Books that are collections of slice of life short stories about a guy and his Labrador in Brooklyn. I'm not joking. So yes, there are resources, but it is very important not just to know if they publish stuff like what you write, but also because you might not want to submit to them if they publish too much stuff exactly like what you write. Not only have we rejected books because we don't publish slice of life short story collections about people and dogs unless the dogs talk or unless there's magic. But just randos from Brooklyn and their puppies, no, not so much. But we've also sometimes rejected books because, I'm sorry, this is almost identical to something else we have in the line. That should never stop you from submitting. If you have an urban fantasy series with a snarky male protagonist set in a major southeastern city, you should still pay attention to when we're open for subs or meet me at a convention and pitch the series to me. The fact that I write and publish multiple series with snarky male protagonists in major southern cities should not stop you. because there are plenty of ways to skin that cat, and your book may end up being dramatically different from anything I've written or anything I've published. So you should still pitch that, but be prepared in case somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, this is too much like something we just released. Now, if the publisher doesn't publish much or anything like what you write, but they have been on panels saying they're interested in moving more into that genre, that's a perfect time to pitch to them. For example, we at Falstaff have not done a whole lot of military science fiction. It's not for lack of interest. It's just because we haven't gotten that many very good submissions of military science fiction. William McCaskey, who's one of the guests here, is the majority of our Mill Sci-Fi catalog. I think we've got 2 titles of Mill Sci-Fi in our catalog. I wrote one and Will wrote the other. You should check it out. It is called Dragon 2.0. But we are always looking for more science fiction because we're softer in that line. So since I am out here saying, yes, we want more sci-fi, if you've got a sci-fi series and we're open for submissions, or you come to a live pitch session somewhere, then absolutely pitch me that. And as far as resources, yes, Ralan.com, RALAN, I think. Let me double check that. Yes, RALAN.com. Ralan.com is a website that they gather together. There's a word, aggregate. They aggregate markets and sort them by genre. And they are specifically focused on science fiction, fantasy, horror, etc. So if you go to Ralan.com and you look at the top of the page, there's professional, semi-pro, pay, token, anthologies, books. You can sort their listings by whatever. So if you click on books, publisher, they've got a book publisher market. Strangely enough, Falstaff Books isn't listed. You know why? Because we're not open for submissions. So they are a great source for people who are looking to submit work. That's RALAN.com. And they've got a little blurb about what to pitch and how to pitch, or how to have your agent pitch, all of that. So do your research before you pitch, and it gives you a better chance of being successful. Back to notes. Oh, comps. So anybody who's bought or sold a house knows what comps are. Buying and selling books is the same way. I tell people a lot of times, if you enjoy Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, you will probably enjoy the Black Knight Chronicles. I sometimes follow that up with, because I ripped Jim off wholeheartedly when I started writing that series. He knows. It's no big deal. His response is, it's okay. I ripped off Joss Whedon when I started writing the Dresden Files. We're all working off source material. So you should know what your comps are. If you are writing a book that is just like the Mira Grant Newsflesh series, which is one of my favorite zombie book series ever, Shauna knows this. I've told her before. You should put that in your query. This is where it becomes very important for you to read in the genre that you're writing in. I have heard from a lot of unpublished writers that they don't want to read anything in the genre that they're writing in because they don't want to be contaminated by it. You're already contaminated by it, and you need to be completely engulfed by it. You need to know what the tropes of your genre are. If you're going to write vampires, you better damn sure have read at least the first Twilight book. I don't care what you have to say about whether or not vampires sparkle. That book sold more than everything I've ever written put together, and probably more than me and 10 other guests at this con put together. It's a part of the culture. You need to know about that book. Because if somebody says, oh, well, that's just like so-and-so. Okay. Not really, but it's a little like that. But instead of this, it's like this. You also need to have read Anne Rice. You don't necessarily need to have read Bram Stoker to write vampires successfully. You know how I know this? I've never read Bram Stoker. I've never read Dracula, not in the full original text. I've read Anne Rice. I've read Laurel K. Hamilton. I've read Jim Butcher. I've read the first Twilight. I've read a lot of vampire fiction. I've read contemporary vampire fiction that is selling today. So I'm not discounting the quality of older books. I'm discounting their usefulness in selling a work of fiction today. This is where we come back to that disconnect between art and commerce. Because my job isn't to write a book that will be considered the greatest work of fantasy literature in 50 years. My job is to write the best book I possibly can and sell it to people. Because, be it ever so humble, I got to pay for this home. And if you're going to be a professional writer, and if you're interested in pitching your book to publishers, I assume that you then want to do this for money, then you're also going to need to divorce yourself a little from the lofty goals of art and dive into the filthy lucre of commerce. And I'm not ever saying don't do the best job you can and don't write the best book you can write. I'm saying nothing's precious. I'm saying the best writers in the English language were writing for money. Dickens wrote to a word count and he got paid by the word. Shakespeare was a hack writing for patrons and the hookers selling oranges at the back of the theater. So write what people want to read, write what people want to buy. And if you read what people are currently buying, that means you're going to know what your comps are. For example, I'm not going to say that any of my vampire series are just like the Vampire Lestat, because they're not. It's a different style of prose. I will say that, yeah, it's a lot like the Dresden Files, only it's this and this and this, and the things that differentiate and show that I know the material I'm comparing it to. You definitely don't ever want to use a comp that you haven't read. I've seen this done as well. You don't want to say that don't come up and tell me that your urban fantasy is just like the Codex Alera meets Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Because those two things are nothing like each other. nor are they urban fantasy. So either you don't understand what a comp is, or you're just throwing word salad at me, and these are popular books that you think will impress me that you know what they're called. And I've seen that done. I've seen people do Twitter pitch contests that say, like, they say it's an adult fantasy, and it's like the King Killer Chronicles and the Chronicles of Valdemar. Those books are nothing alike. It's like saying it's like Joe Abercrombie plus George Lucas. Those things are nothing alike. Your comps need to not just be similar to your book in a way that a normal human being can understand, but your comps also kind of need to go together if you're using multiples of them. Also, you want to use different comps with agents and publishers than you do with the general public. I use different comps when I'm talking to people in the publishing industry as when I'm talking to someone who's standing in front of my table with $20 in their hand wanting to buy a book. I don't tell people in the publishing industry that Harker's like Supernatural. I use a book comp. When I'm selling books at conventions, I use pop culture comps. So you kind of have to pay attention to all of those things to sell books. Also, don't use the biggest names in your genre as your comps. You are not writing the next Harry Potter. You have not written the next Lord of the Rings. You have not written the next Wheel of Time. You have not written the next Have Spacesuit Will Travel. Using the biggest names in your field not only shows a disconnect from the genre, because a lot of those people aren't with us any longer and haven't published in many, many years. So if your book's just like theirs, it's nothing like anything that people are buying today. Even Harry Potter's not a contemporary comp. That first book's 20 years old, if not more, probably more. So don't use comps that are old. Also, don't use comps that make you look like a jerk. I'm trying to keep it PG. I'm not sure why, but I am. That make you look like an egotistical jerk for saying that you are as good as the biggest selling authors in the world. Tolkien rewrote the genre. Actually, I think he wrote a big chunk of the genre. Don't say you're like him. Robert Jordan, he really did rewrite the genre. Harry Potter reinvented YA fantasy. Don't claim that your book is just like one of those. Use somebody a little less huge. Next step. How specifically do you pitch? I'm going to go through my structure for a query letter. And then if you're doing this live, you just make these words not sound like you're reading them. You make them sound like they're really coming from you, off the cuff. It's like, another Twilight reference, it's like Robert Pattinson's hair. It needs to look like you don't pay any attention to making it that way, and yet you pay a lot of attention to making it happen that way. So I do a lot of these live pitch sessions at cons, and when it's your turn to pitch, here's what I want. And if you're sending me a query letter, here's what I want to see. It's 3 or 4 sentences. If it's more than that, then you've probably run longer than I'm going to pay attention to. First sentence. Give me your name, the title of the book. Is it a standalone? The format, the genre, that it is complete at a certain length. And then if it's got series potential or if it's book one of a series. For example, I'm John Hartness, and this is Hard Day's Night, the first book in an urban fantasy series. It is a completed novel at 75,000 words. Yes, that's technically 2 sentences. Get over it. When you're pitching to an agent or pitching to a major New York publisher, a lot of times they want to hear the phrase, it is a standalone book with series potential. I don't know why somebody's decided that's what you're supposed to say, but when you're working with an independent press, a smaller press, tell me right off it's a series. If you know it's a trilogy, tell me it's a trilogy. If it's an open-ended series, just say this is the first book in a series. Science fiction and fantasy lives and dies by the series. Horror does a lot more standalones because everyone's dead at the end. It's hard to continue when you've killed everybody. But that's your first sentence, maybe 2 if they're short. Quick introduction, title of the book, format, genre. By format, I mean, is it a novel or a novella? The length, put in that it's complete. This goes back to that very first thing I said, where you've got to have the book. Sometimes people don't have the book, and we know that sometimes people don't have the book. So tell me you've got a book. And then tell me if it's a series or a standalone. Second sentence. This can go to 2 sentences, but no more than 2. This is your synopsis of the plot. That's it. No, I don't care how complicated your plot is, how many points of view it takes, or how many fantastic plot twists and locations you've got. You've got a max of 2 sentences. Boil your crap down. We got stuff to do. And if you're not willing to put in the work to boil your synopsis down, it makes me wonder whether or not you're willing to put in the work on edits later. Everything's a skill check. Everything that we ask people to do is a skill check. Your third or fourth sentence is anything interesting about you. Relevant life experiences, writing awards that you've won, previous publications, especially anthologies featuring authors that publisher has worked with. If you say that you were in the Weird Wild West anthology edited by Margaret McGraw, Emily Leverett, and Misty Massey, in your cover letter, I'm going to be interested because I publish books written by Emily Leverett and anthologies edited by Emily and Margaret and Misty. So I can then check on you. I can see if you're a jerk. I can see if you can write. You want to add in your relevant professional organizations. If you're a member of SIFWA, if you're a member of HWA, those things go in there. If you have an MFA specifically in genre fiction, you can add that there. Or if you have a career or specific education that relates to your book, if you're writing military science fiction and you retired as a full colonel from the U.S. Army, I'm going to then want to know that. If you're writing vampire fiction and you're actually a vampire, don't send me anything because you're crazy. And I got enough crazy. I have a cat. I don't need more crazy. Go sell crazy somewhere else. We're all full up here. Jack Nicholson, as good as it gets. I think it's as good as it gets. If you have an MFA in creative writing, probably leave that out. A lot of us have had bad interactions with people who have either been part of or taught in MFA creative writing programs. So maybe you want to leave out that you're a member of a group of educators that has long since crapped on genre fiction. Again, there are some great genre fiction MFAs, and if you've got one of those degrees, Seton Hill, I think, is one of them, and it's a fantastic program. Put that in there, because I can check you out there too, because I know people who have that degree from that university, and we can check on you. Yes, we do check on everybody who submits, at least if we're interested. If we auto reject, then no. But that's it. 3 or 4 sentences. That's all you need. If it's at a convention, you can pitch anywhere. That's why they call it your elevator pitch, not the bathroom. Almost anywhere. Yes, it happens. It's not good. Don't slide your manuscript under the bathroom stall door. Don't give me your elevator pitch while we're standing at a urinal. Not even while we're washing hands. While we're washing hands, if you want to say, hey, can I chat? Can I talk to you outside? Can I talk to you when we're not in here? Yes. I have business to conduct in the loo, but it's not writing business. And let's keep it that way. Pay attention to your surroundings, not just so you're not an idiot and pitching someone in the bathroom, but also because we're paying attention. Everybody's paying attention. When you're at a con, you're working. It's fine if you're at a convention to have fun and this is your vacation or your family reunion. That's cool. Awesome. Don't pitch there. If you're there to get a book contract, you're there to work. And you're working from the moment you get there to the moment you leave. If you're not in your hotel room alone or with your roommate or partner, you're working. And somebody's watching what you're doing. Case in point, I once went to literally the hottest convention in the world called Fandom Fest in Louisville, Kentucky. This was about 2010, I think. It was the hottest summer on record. And this was an older one of those hotels with the doors on the outside, and it makes a square and there's a pool in the center, except they dropped a terrarium over it. It was under the dome, y'all, I swear. This must be where he got the idea, because it was so hot. Well, the air conditioning crapped out on Friday, right when the con was starting up. So I'm in a panel, and I got roped into moderating I wasn't moderating that one. This was a writer meetup. I had 2 books out, and maybe 3 books out. And I had heard there was going to be a publisher there that I was interested in working with. So I talked to the guy running the writer's track, got on programming, drove 8 hours from Charlotte to Louisville to come to this con on my own nickel to meet this publisher. So we go through the writers meetup, and the press happened to be on the next panel in that room. So when everybody cleared out, I just sat there. Now, when the air conditioner crapped out, the air in the panel room still worked until the young lady from the front desk came in and said, "I'm sorry, y'all. This unit is putting too much of a load on our heat exchanger, and I got to turn off the air in this room." That's not how air conditioning works. So when she turned it off and then the room cleared out, I thought, I bet I can fix this. And I walked to the back of the room and I said, there's no glass case over this thermostat. There's no lock. There's no key code. It looks like the thermostat in my mama's house. So I reached over, flicked it from off to on. Blessed cool air starts coming out of the ceiling. I go back, take my seat, and the nice middle-aged lady across the room who was sitting there with her husband said, "Did you just do what I think you just did?" And I said, "Well, if you think I turned the air back on, you damn skippy, I did." She said, "I like you. I'm Deb Dixon with Bellbridge Books." I said, "Hey, I'm Sean Hartness. I paid out to stop to how you doing so far?" My 8th book with Bellbridge released less than 3 weeks ago. It's called Lady in Black. It's the 8th book in the Black Knight Chronicles series. It's available now wherever books are sold. Audiobook coming later this fall. So I think that meeting went well. I once had an author at a con. I was doing a pitch session on Sunday. Friday, this author comes by the table, says, "I'm going to pitch to you. I've got a book that's ready to go. You're going to love it. I'm pitching to you this year." Okay, that's great. I'll see you Sunday. They come up to me Saturday. "I'm pitching to you tomorrow. You're going to love this. I'm going to blow your doors off." Awesome. Looking forward to it. Saturday night, they get so sloppy drunk in the hotel bar, networking, that they can't find their own hotel room. I'm sitting there at the hotel bar. They wisely did not show up for the pitch session Sunday morning. They may not have been capable of moving Sunday morning, but at least they understood that I was watching that, and I don't want to have to deal with that. I know that everybody I publish, I got to pay attention to what they're doing everywhere. And sure, them getting hammered at a con doesn't really reflect on me. But if they can't keep their crap together to pitch to me, well, I can't then recommend them to conventions that are asking me, "Hey, which ones of your authors should we book?" Well, maybe not this one. They drink too much, or they're kind of an idiot. I don't want to publish idiots. So pay attention to your surroundings. You're on from the moment you get there to the moment you leave. We've got just a couple of minutes, so if you've got any questions, now's the time to work those little typey fingers. And if not, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to play with the cat and maybe get a snack and more ice in my cup before I head off into my reading room to read from some current works in progress and recently published stuff. So thank you guys very much for joining me. I hope that some of this has been useful. I'm looking forward to the time when we can all be together physically again. But there are some great pieces to this virtual con in that, you don't know if I'm wearing pants or not. I am, by the way. I put on pants for this. That's how much that's how seriously I'm taking it. There's a question in chat saying, "Hey, do you social drink at cons at all?" Yes, I do. Not a ton. I'm a great big old fat guy, so I got gout a couple of years ago, and I can't drink beer. It makes my foot hurt. So I'll have a couple of ciders, but I don't get intoxicated at conventions. I'm working. This is my job. So anytime that I am out in public, I'm representing myself, the company I own, and I want to make sure that I'm in control of everything about the image I'm presenting. It might not be the greatest image in the world, but it's what I got. All right. If there are no other questions, thank you guys very much. If you come up with questions in the next hour, come over into the Discord, into one of the reading rooms. You'll be able to find which one I'm in. It'll be the one with my name on it. So hit me up there. I'm happy to answer questions while I'm doing a reading. So thanks again, and y'all be good to each other, okay?